What's up, everybody? Welcome to the ATL Sports HQ live show, the show for the fans, by the fans. This is episode 11. I am Bob Lancaster. You can find me on social media all over at Bowling Bob.
I'm Phil Veasley, better known as _ATL Phil. Find me on Twitter and Instagram.
I'm Daric Clemens. You can find me on Twitter at dclemens.
All right, you can follow the site, atlsportshq.com and ATL Sports HQ on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Also, the show can be found on all major podcast sites, including iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Look for us on any major sites. You'll find us there. Just type in ATL Sports HQ. If you are interested in writing for the site, we are actively recruiting. You can shoot over a message to Phil or myself. Phil on Twitter at _ATL Phil, me at Bowling Bob. And we will get you set up for writing for us. We'd love to have you. Let's get right into it, guys. The first topic today is going to be the Atlanta Falcons and the NFL around. The Falcons hired Daric as the offensive coordinator and Mike Mularkey as the tight ends coach. Does this seem to be two hires that could easily jump in and take over if Dan Quinn needs to be fired mid-season next year, Daric?
I mean, it's possible, but I don't see us making a head coaching change in the middle of a season. I think Dan Quinn does have another chance to coach a full season, but with these coaching changes, I mean, it just looks like they just tried to stay comfortable and they went the easy route out. They didn't want to do anything that was very they didn't want to take a risk because they went with two familiar faces to the organization. So it just seems like they're content with the same stuff. I mean, I'm not all the way negative on the hires. I mean, I think Matt Ryan did have a say in who he wanted and who he was comfortable with because it's hard for him. I mean, all the offensive coordinators that he's been through his career, he's a constant changing. So, I mean, it's something he's comfortable with, most likely, I'm assuming so. So, I mean, I just think there's still I'm not happy about the coaching changes and who we hired, but I'm also not mad about it.
Yeah, I mean, he was really, really comfortable with Daric. He had one of his best seasons. It might have been his best season. I can't remember. I know. Obviously, the MVP year was a really good year, but I don't know if that was his best statistical season or not with the Falcons. I know that a Super Bowl year. Daric was the OC, and again, being comfortable, stuff like that, and we'll talk about that in the next segment. But Phil, you think this is two hires where someone could jump in if they need to replace Dan Quinn in the middle of the season next year?
I don't know about that. I really think the franchise really put a bet on Dan Quinn this offseason. You could see it even in the press conferences with Arthur Blank and with Dan Quinn. You can tell Dan Quinn might have more say right now than even Thomas Dimitroff. I don't think Dan Quinn is going anywhere anytime soon. Even if we have a bad season next year, we'll be just cycling through more coordinators. It really seems like Dan Quinn and Arthur Blank are on the same page, and they really think that Dan Quinn can get this done. But I like the hires. I really don't understand all of the negativity on Twitter, because at this stage in Matt Ryan's career, I don't think there's anything better you could have done than getting somebody he already knew.
Yeah, for me, it was I was more shocked by the Mike Mularkey hire because he was rumored often as to be an offensive coordinator in other jobs. So I was surprised that he took over as the tight ends coach. And that's where the curiosity for this question, the topic that I brought up was, because why is Mike Mularkey only taking a tight end job? And so that's what kind of got me thinking. I think we all know it's very, very, very unlike Arthur Blank to make a move like this in the middle of the year. I don't expect something like that to happen. He's all about consistency. He always has been. I mean, you look at how long Dimitroff has been allowed to keep his job with his poor results. And then Rich McKay, look how long he's been with the Falcons organization. But, this one just kind of confused me because I thought, now this year, they fired everybody that worked under Dan Quinn, so now the responsibility falls strictly on Dan Quinn. And I thought if they'd come out 0-3, 0-4, sure would be easy for Cutter to slide into the head coaching spot, another person that is familiar with Arthur Blank, and then have Mike Mularkey easily slide into that offensive coordinator role, someone that Matt Ryan is familiar with. So it's not like we're talking about a guy that where Matt Ryan would again have to change. He's familiar with Mike Mularkey's play calling, someone that he's spoken well of. So that just kind of really threw me for a loop when they hired him as a tight ends coach.
Now, what would you do with the defensive coordinator spot if Dan Quinn was fired?
I think that that's the most perfect thing they could have done, because Dan Quinn was brought here specifically for what he brought to the Seahawks defense. But what's always underplayed with Dan Quinn and and handling that defense was how big of a role Chris Richards. I'm not sure if you guys are really familiar with Chris Richards, but he was the essentially the secondary coach for the Seahawks. And so he was really the one that handled your Cam Chancellor, your the Earl Thomas and all that, the shutdown cornerbacks and stuff. And so he really doesn't get a lot of love for how much he assisted Dan Quinn with that defense. But I really liked Dan Quinn taking over the responsibility here, because again, that was why he was here, and that's what he should be doing. Daric, on that note, do you think Dan Quinn taking over is a good idea?
Yeah, I think it's actually a really good idea. I mean, that's his strong suit, and I think he wants to be more involved instead of having another coach. And I think he understands the defense and what we need to do to be successful. And he wants to. I mean, like Phil said, it looks like they put a lot of trust in Quinn and want him to do what he can do, and is giving him free reign to make these hirings and then to take control of the defense and see what he can do with it.
From what I've been reading too, is that they are interested in Chris Richards coming over here as a secondaries coach. The problem is that either he has the same position or a higher position at Dallas, and Dallas is still in the playoffs. So they're not allowed to talk to him. And if he has a similar position, I'm going to guess Dallas says no way you're allowed to talk to the Falcons about that job. But that's going to be an interesting thing to do, because I think he is going to hire someone like that's going to be right underneath him, just won't call the plays and won't be considered a defensive coordinator, but it's going to be someone that's stronger in the cornerback safety position, which is two positions that the Falcons considerably struggled with on defense this year. So
I do actually I seen a report that we hired someone to help Quinn manage
like the game.
Game situations and the timing and stuff.
I'm glad that hire wasn't Mike Smith.
I don't know why we get the worst luck with situational coaches.
Yeah. But with Dan Quinn's is where it was not really having the where he's been around a long time, so the experience, there we go, that's the word I'm looking for, the experience to of calling those plays. I don't know what Mike Smith's excuse was. I mean, he was the worst I've ever seen. But Dan Quinn is a close second in the last couple of years. So, but that is going to be one thing to see. Again, now the responsibility falls on Dan Quinn. The other guys have been thrown under the bus. I'm sure that, he's been told that, hey, now it's, there's only one more position to go now, and it's him or Thomas Dimitroff. And I think that if they fail, they go together. I can't imagine Arthur Blank showing – again, which will have a lot to do with the soccer championship. He's seen what it's like to win now, and when you taste it for one time, you want to keep it. So, and the embarrassment of struggling this year in a Super Bowl year here didn't help. So, but we'll definitely keep an eye on that, and we'll definitely check out some of the secondary hires, which are going to be just important. We still don't have a special teams coach yet, and I think that's also going to be a big hire. I'm hoping they get someone good for that and not promote from within through the Falcons. So, but my second question is, was it important for the Falcons to make a hire at OC that was comfortable with Matt Ryan already, Phil?
Absolutely. I think that they should have had him in the interviews. They should have asked him, who do you want? They should have asked him, who do you not want? I don't buy for a second that he wasn't involved in the process. You don't give the man $100 million at this stage of his career and fire yet another coordinator if you're not trying to make him comfortable. I honestly think it should have been as much of his decision as anybody else's in the organization. So I really think that's why I don't understand all the negativity and hatred toward the hire on Twitter yesterday. It was a war zone. I don't understand it. And people calling it like a lateral move. Okay, but who else was out there? What was the Denver guy named Gary Kubiak? He wasn't out there. Who else out there was a better name than this? And we're talking about Matt Ryan, the veteran. You need to get someone he's comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that 100%. That I think Matt Ryan made this call. It was again, when you've rolled through offensive coordinators like he has, what was it like, almost like 5 and 5 years or 4 and 4 years, or it's been ridiculous. But do you think this was important for the Falcons, Daric, to make this OC hire, that someone's it's comfortable with Matt Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the most important thing, because Matt Ryan needs to be comfortable, and it's been constant changing. And I mean, it was a move that it just like, okay, say we get a different offensive coordinator, then Matt Ryan has to learn it again. And I mean, you've seen in the past we've struggled with the first year, so you're going to say, okay, we have this year, and it's just another excuse. And the window's closing for this core group of guys. I mean, Matt Ryan and Julio, and then our running back core. I mean, the window is closing very slowly, but it's time to go now, and we don't have time to take years off because we have to learn a new offense.
Yeah, what'll be interesting is we know how this will impact Matt Ryan. Again, I'm guessing that he had more voice in this hire than we'll all be able to know. But what I'm curious is how he'll do with the running game. Because from what it sounds like, Tevin Coleman will be out the door. So you're looking at, having Ito Smith and then Devonta Freeman, duoing this year. And with Devonta Freeman's health, it's that's gonna be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they draft a running back again later on in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round as again a depth type of thing like they did with Ito. Ito was one of their better 2nd, 3rd rounders. I can't remember if they got him in 2nd and 3rd, but he was definitely one of their better late round picks. So, but our guy Tushar, I have him doing a little bit of research for us. He says that the Falcons did get a special teams coordinator, Ben Kotwika from Washington Redskins. So yeah. I appreciate you, Tushar. So he's doing a little bit of side work for me there, but he also said last year was his 2nd best in career to the year, his MVP year that was 2015. So He's there to correct me. He's got my back to make sure I got the right info. but yeah, that's going to be something, like I said, when we talk about something interesting to watch, to see what kind of year that Matt Ryan's going to have. But I'm not worried about him. I want to see how good the offensive line plays. I want to see how good the running backs do. I want to see what he does for the development of Calvin Ridley. There's more to it than just the quarterback position. We saw Matt Ryan pretty much have, a year, a near career year last year. So, and we saw what that did. But so we'll definitely keep an eye on that as well. But now let's get into some NFL news. The NFL head coaching jobs seem to be filled in short order this week. It was like some bang, bang, bang coaching decision. The Packers, they hired Matt LaFleur. The Buccaneers hired Bruce Arians. The Cardinals hired Cliff Kingsbury. The Browns hired Freddie Kitchens. The Broncos hired Vic Fangio. And it appears that Adam Gase will be hired by the Jets. Which head coaching hire surprised you the most, Daric?
I'm going to have to go with the Cardinals, the Cliff Kingsbury hire. I mean, it was just a weird hire. I mean, I think it seems like teams are searching for that next Sean McVay, and I think that's what the Cardinals were doing. So I mean, it was just a weird hire. I mean, he didn't have great success last season, and I just don't see where he fits for that team. But I mean, I guess we'll see what happens.
Phil, which job you think was the best, or which surprised you? I mean,
they all kind of surprised because it looked like they kind of went into the name blender and just threw some letters together. But yeah, the Cardinals hire kind of made me scratch my head a little bit. It's like, come on now, how all these people getting these jobs, but you have some very not to go off on a tangent here, but you got a lot of very successful African American coaches that have very short leashes and don't get a second opportunity. But they'll go out here and get somebody that unproven. You have no idea what they may or may not be able to do. So
for me, it's in between two. I was surprised about Matt LaFleur just because that was a big job, up in Green Bay. So there was a lot of qualified people that wanted that job. But I'm going to go with Cliff Kingsbury for the Cardinals. You got to look at in a less than a year span, fired from Texas Tech as the head coach, and then went to USC as the offensive coordinator. USC refused to let him to interview for any NFL jobs, so he had to resign and pay a buyout to USC to even be able to interview. Gets the job in Arizona, but I'm going to tell you why. There's a certain little quarterback at Kansas City that was developed by Cliff Kingsbury that got Cliff Kingsbury an NFL head coaching job because he has done nothing else in his time but Patrick Mahomes. We see what a stud he is. But Daric hit it right on the nose. Everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay, young guy. LaFleur is the same thing. He's a younger guy. He was the Titans defensive coordinator, he was an assistant for the Titans. No, he might have been I think he was the offensive coordinator because it surprised me with how crappy their Mariota is, so that he got a head coaching job. But so those two are definitely surprised. I figured Bruce Arians would eventually come back in. Last week we talked about Adam Gase, and I said he would be the one that would get another head coaching job of all the ones that got fired this year. And sure enough, he's going to take the Jets job. But there's still, I think, two left. I think I know Cincinnati's one, but I can't remember what the other open job is.
I can't think of it.
Yeah, I know Cincinnati's one. And to go back to Phil's comment, I'm going to guess the Cincinnati job does go to an African American. They've had a strong history of hiring African American coaches, so I wouldn't be surprised. And it looks like their assistants, the two assistants, were African American, so I wouldn't be surprised if they get that job. But let's move on to Georgia, and we're also going to talk about the national title game a little bit. The mass exodus in Athens has begun, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Mecole Hardman, Riley Ridley, Isaac Nada, Elijah Holyfield all leaving early. Luke Ford and Justin Fields transferring, and offensive coordinator Jim Chaney leaving for Tennessee. Is this concerning at all for Georgia, or is it just because these guys were so good, Phil?
No, when you're on top, when you're one of the best teams in the nation, it's going to be a revolving door, more so than when you're like a middle-of-the-pack team. I wouldn't be concerned, and the experts and analysts aren't really concerned either because in the early polls, everything I've seen has Georgia about third next year. Obviously this is very early, but has them third next year behind Clemson and Alabama, of course. But I wouldn't be too concerned. I don't on paper, I look at it and I don't see them being a championship contender next year, like a real championship contender next year. But I don't know. It's a little concerning, but it's just that's just how it is when you're that good and on top of the league.
Yeah, does this concern you at all, Daric, or is it just because these guys are, all really good?
It doesn't really concern me. Like Phil said, when you're recruiting the way that Kirby Smart is, you just have people and it's always next man up. And it's good to see that, I mean, the players are performing so well that they think they have a good shot to continue their career into the NFL. And I mean, and then the coaching changes like Jim Chaney, I mean, that's also, I don't think that's a big loss because of the talent level that they continue to bring in on offensive end, that it's hard to not find the right rhythm and be successful on the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, really, I mean, I guess into a casual fan, because these are the big names, so I guess it's kind of takes you by surprise, like, oh, man, we're losing all these people. But when you actually figure it out and then you look at it, and then when the season comes, you're going to see, oh, they have all these recruits that are not either producing at the same level or even a higher level.
Next man up.
Normally for me, I wouldn't be concerned because I would agree with the both of you where there's enough talent. You know, what concerns me though is usually when juniors leave early, it's because they think they're going to be a first round, maybe mid second round talent. I don't see this with some of these guys. You know, Riley Ridley probably has a shot at late first, second based on, I think his brother's name. I hate to say that, but, we know what Calvin Ridley can do, and we've seen what Riley Ridley can do. Elijah Holyfield, I don't see him being a first day pick.
One though.
I mean, he'll obviously get picked. To me, the most concerning of this one was Isaac Nada. So they're really going to miss him at the tight end spot, especially with Luke Ford transferring out to Illinois. So you lost two big tight ends right there, and that's not the easiest. It's easy, it's easy to get the 5-star running backs, to get the 5-star wide receivers, but it's not easy to get the 5-star tight ends. And so, so that one was concerning, but it just kind of, what really got my mind turning was, what was this all because Chaney was leaving, and so that made me wonder, were they really loyal to Jim Chaney, and then what happened between Jim Chaney and with the did he have problems with their head coach or anything, or
The thing that surprised, I mean, the Nada thing, I mean, even if it was because of Chaney, that would surprise me because, I mean, really, if you think about it, Chaney never got him fully involved on a consistent basis, which I thought we could have used him way better. I don't think we used him to his full potential, and it surprised me that he went because he wasn't able to showcase the talent level that he has at a lot of times. And I think Miko Hardman also surprised me a lot too because I don't see him going early, especially not first round. And I mean, he's more of a specialty type of guy. He's one of those guys that's going to be your kick returner, your punt returner, and then he can come in and maybe run a slant route or something and try to come in for the big play, sort of like a Taylor Gabriel type player. So, I mean, them two really surprised me.
Do you think there was a feud between Chaney and Kirby?
I mean, the
fact that he went to Tennessee and, another SEC straight transfer. It's not like he got a promotion. It's the same job that he had here. And then he went to Jeremy Pruitt, who has had his issues with the Georgia program. That really kind of made me go, that's kind of weird, So, but yeah, do you think there was something more behind the scenes there?
I mean, throughout the year, you could tell at some points the frustration Kirby had with Chaney, but I mean, that happens with every team. And then, I mean, another thing is that he's getting a big raise when he's going to Tennessee. So, I mean, and I don't think Georgia was willing to pay him, but I do think that it's very possible that Chaney and Kirby kind of butted heads at sometimes, and it showed sometimes throughout the season.
Yeah, again, that's something you just can't have, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We know what Georgia defense is going to bring to the table. So, if there's any kind of miscommunication, was Phil, if is Kirby an offensive guy or a defensive guy? Was he? Do you know that one? What's his like expertise of whether offense or defense? So I was thinking if he's a defensive guy, it's another big, it would be big if he needs an offensive guy that he can trust to call on those plays.
Second,
I'm gonna guess he was a defensive guy, but not 100% sure. But
he was the defensive coordinator in LA.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I figured that he needs to have a voice there that where a lot like Nick Saban. There we go. Man, I'm struggling with names today. Good Lord.
I think with Chaney, it was resign or be fired.
Yeah, that's true.
It seemed like you started to lose trust. Kirby started to lose trust in him.
Does this change your predictions for Georgia next year, Phil?
Yeah, for me it does. I look at that schedule. You got Notre Dame. Yeah, it's at home. You got Florida. Florida's coming off a really good year. And then you also have Auburn, which Auburn can trip them up sometimes. So you pretty much, in order to be a championship contender, either you got to beat Alabama in the SEC championship or hope that Auburn or somebody gets them, or you got to go undefeated. So that's a lot to ask for.
And you're probably going to see Alabama in that SEC championship game again. It's not like they're getting any weaker, But
Right.
Daric, does this change your prediction for Georgia next year?
No, it doesn't change my prediction. I mean, we still have our guys, and our defense just got older, even though we lost some of our best players because they were seniors, like Baker and then Walker. But I still think we'll end up being a top 5 team, but we could end up being on that far end and being 5 or 6 team because you just never know if the guys will step up that are coming in next season. And like Phil said, the schedule is looking pretty tough next season. I mean, like Notre Dame and Auburn, and then on and on. So I still think they're a top 5 team just because of the talent level, but it's definitely going to be a hard season.
For me, it definitely does change my predictions. I figured in my mind I had them as being a national championship contender next year. I think that now pushes that a year further back again because these guys that are leaving were pretty much responsible for a lot of our offense this year. Elijah Holyfield saved us many, many games this year. And then Isaac Nada also had a good year, and then we obviously know what Miko Hardman and Riley really did throughout the year. But that part worries me. And seeing other teams that are ahead of us not getting any weaker, Clemson bringing back pretty much the core of this team, and then Alabama always improving. Ohio State, it's obviously going to be improved with whoever they do have at the quarterback position. Obviously, we know it's looking like Justin Fields, but so I think they're going to be improved. So yeah, I definitely changed my prediction. I'm not taking them to get into the national championship game next year. I'd love to be wrong, but I just don't think it's going to happen. I do think we're going to push a year behind. But every year that we don't get in is another year where everybody starts treating Kirby. Can Kirby win the big one? And, you start sinking in that doubt. And, we're going to have another Mark Richt situation on our hand, except Kirby Smart isn't the nice guy Mark Richt was. So, and that's it. We need to start seeing results. That's what we got to start looking for. So, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I just don't see Kirby not getting those guys ready to go again. But I just don't think they're going to be in the team that I thought they were going to be next year. But let's get into that national championship game. Clemson, man, they just flat destroyed Alabama, 44-16 for that national championship. Have we been so consumed with Alabama being a national powerhouse that Clemson has snuck in and claimed that spot, Phil?
Ooh, I still, when you think of the dominant force in the national race, you still think Alabama. Now, if Clemson was to come back and do this again next year, then yeah, we need to be talking about Clemson, not Alabama. But it was a beautiful thing to see because I hate those popular winning teams. I hate Golden State. I hated the Heat back in the day. And I hated Alabama, so it was just a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah, I'll jump in here real quick and just say, like, I definitely was consumed with Alabama being that national powerhouse. I had them picked to win the national championship this year. I knew Clemson would get in because there's no one better than them in the ACC. So, but I definitely didn't think Trevor Lawrence was as game ready. And this is someone that's followed Trevor Lawrence through high school, and seeing what he did, dominating state championships. It's not like this is his first rodeo in a championship game, but I still never expected him to be as polished as he is in the college game. And so, yeah, I mean, I was consumed with Alabama, and it definitely surprised me how Clemson was just they overcoached Nick Saban. I mean, outcoached Nick Saban. Overcoached, outcoached, same thing. But yeah, they were better team than a Nick Saban team. And it's the first time I've ever felt that Nick Saban wasn't ready for a game. But what do you think, Daric?
I mean, I don't. They haven't claimed the spot yet, but they are definitely closing the gap. And I mean, like you said, they outcoached Saban, and I mean, they had him rattled. I mean, that fake field goal, you just saw things that you haven't seen from Nick Saban in Alabama. So I think definitely, I mean, they've been there every year. I mean, this was the fourth time they played each other in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure. And I mean, they're just starting to close the gap in. I think throughout time, they might end up taking over that spot.
Hey, it's 2-2 now.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. You're like, they haven't claimed that spot, but hey, we're looking at a tie ball game here. It's 2-2. But they I thought, just like in the Georgia-Texas game and then this game as well, that when they went into halftime, I thought, no way is Nick Saban letting them coming out in the second half looking as flat as they did in the first half. And they looked worse in the second half than they did in the first half. And, that just finally gave me, a thought that someone might be getting a little bit better than Nick Saban, So that was definitely surprising. It was great to see. But this kind of segues into our next question. What was the better freshman performance? And we'll go just the national title game only. We're not talking about the entire year, because really Tua didn't play the entire year's freshman year. But the better freshman performance in the national title game, Tua in 2018 or Trevor Lawrence in 2019, Daric?
Definitely Trevor Lawrence, because just for the simple fact, I mean, Tua was great, but Georgia didn't have the full time to game plan for Tua, and I mean, he just showed that they weren't ready to guard against him. But then Alabama, Nick Saban did have the full time to game plan against Trevor Lawrence, and he still dominated. And I mean, he did something we haven't seen ever, pretty much, against Alabama.
What you think, Phil?
Gotta go, Trevor. He absolutely shredded Alabama's defense all night long. What was it? 347 yards, near flawless performance against Alabama's defense that we thought nobody was going to be able to touch. I mean, if you would have asked me a few weeks ago, I would have said nobody's touching Alabama. And for Trevor to come in there and do what he did, yeah, Tua had a very special night last year. But I think part of that was more that caught Georgia so off guard. Nobody thought that was going to happen. So I got to give it to Trevor by far.
And I mean, to be honest, Tua has been outplayed twice in the two big games. So I mean, he's great, but I don't know if he's as hyped up as he should be.
Daric, you made me change my answer right in the middle, man. My answer was going to be Tua, because he really came in kind of cold. No one knew about him, and he essentially dominated Georgia. But then you just made me change my answer, and the fact that, Alabama did have an entire year to see what Trevor Lawrence could do. So he essentially outsmarted them with them knowing what was going to come. being able to see game film on him and stuff like that. So, man, we have a first in this live show. My answer was literally just changed. I mean, I was dead set on Tua, just for the fact that, again, he really didn't play that much his freshman year. And so, to be able to come off the bench and stuff like that was huge. But boy, he sure looked like a normal quarterback though. On Monday night, I mean, nothing that he did really impress me. He threw the pick six to start off with, came back with a nice drive on the next drive, but he was really just flat ineffective. The offensive line wasn't very good, and Trevor Lawrence just comes off more as a leader type thing. You can tell that he runs that offense. On a side note, something that I thought about while we're talking about this, Phil, are you surprised Jalen Hurts is in the transfer portal?
Yeah, I thought he was going to stick it out, but I mean, how many years does he have left?
2 years. Are you surprised about?
I think he has one more year, Phil, but I might be wrong. I might be wrong about that.
I think he graduated early, so he can go the same way Russell Wilson went to Wisconsin. You can leave if you graduated but you're still a senior and not have to wait out a year. So I'm going to guess that that's what his deal is that he's an early graduate. But man, that shocked me.
I'm not. Go ahead.
What?
I was just going to say I'm not really surprised, and I'm glad he did because I want him to have the chance to continue to play in college and show what he can do.
I desperately think that he wants to go somewhere with a pro-style offense because that's going to help him in the draft to be under center in a pro-style offense, come out of the pocket, and it'll only increase his draft stock. If your ultimate goal is to be in the NFL, what good is it going to do for him to sit behind Tua for another year? It's not going to help him gain any draft stock. And again, not knowing that you don't have to wait out a year. He was loyal to Alabama. It's not like he snuck away last year. And so, kudos to him. I do hope he does well somewhere because he has been a real good sport about, having to sit behind Tua. I was kind of surprised that we didn't see him, maybe it's a second half change up in the national title game when things weren't going that well. So that kind of surprised me a little bit, but yeah, I'm not surprised to see him in the transfer portal. And it wouldn't surprise me to see him in Miami. That's where Miami and Oklahoma are my two guesses. I would say Oklahoma's got to be the leader in this just because their development of quarterbacks, obviously the last two, Heisman candidate winners have been quarterbacks from Oklahoma. So, and that's a shot he could get. But hey, he wouldn't. I'm sure Ryan and Brett would be thinking, man, he would probably look good in Georgia Tech.
He's coming.
But him being in the transfer portal though, that still doesn't guarantee that he'll leave. It just gives you an opportunity to actually talk to the other schools.
Yeah, if you're going to be a backup, you just stay at Alabama. I mean, there's no sense in leaving. But this gives him the schools a chance to talk to him, to see what jobs he could possibly walk right into and start. So, but that'll play out in the next few weeks as well. So, but my wife, she says she doesn't get him transferring now, but again, you got to look towards your NFL career, not just your college career. So take that next step and impress your scouts and everything like that and get a shot in the NFL. So let's move on to the Atlanta Hawks and the NBA in general. The Hawks week since our last podcast, 144-112, absolute bludgeoning by the Bucks. It was ugly, folks. 106-82 win against the Heat, who last time I checked were putting a whooping on the Celtics.
Yeah, they just won. They won by
that means clearly we're better than the Celtics. 104-101 loss against the Raptors, which was a good game, and a 116-100 loss to Brooklyn, which was not a good game. So,
good first.
My question for you, Phil, was Bud sending the front office a personal message of what he could have done if we had given him some veteran talent and a superstar to work with?
Absolutely. I'm sure there was some things said in that locker room before, at shoot-around before, at the practices before, The players knew, the coaches knew, the arena knew, everybody knew that the Bucks were going to come out there and they were going to send a message on Friday night, and they did not disappoint. They led 73-36, I believe, at halftime. That's 37 points at halftime, ladies and gentlemen. That is a big difference. Giannis Antetokounmpo only played 19 minutes in the blowout, which was really, really much worse than a 32-point game. I think at one point we were down by a good 40, 45 points. But deserved that. But honestly, it was mutual. You know, it was best for both sides to go their separate ways at that point.
What was Giannis's point total in that 19 minutes?
Probably ain't had to do much. I'll just get that for you.
Yeah, I was. I knew he started off hot, so that's why I was wondering. Daric, you think he was sending a message?
I think we do. I think he was, and I mean, I think we see that a lot in sports, that teams want to help their coach beat their former team just to send a message, kind of. So I think it happens a lot, and I definitely think, I mean, they came out and we had no answer. I mean, I haven't seen us look that bad all year. Not that I believe, not that I can remember, but yeah, it was just terrible.
Yeah, that for me it was definitely a message. I mean, you know, a guy coming as an assistant coach in San Antonio, where you see that exact style, you know, where you had the one superstar in Tim Duncan, you know, followed by a really good veteran supporting cast. And then he comes to Atlanta and he never really gets that one superstar. They tried to convince him that Dwight Howard was that guy, and we all know Dwight Howard was not that guy. And so, you know, I absolutely think that was a message sent. The way they came out made you know right off the bat this wasn't going to be pretty. So, Phil, you got those point numbers?
Giannis Antetokounmpo had 16, 8, and 10 in 19 minutes.
Yeah, in 19 minutes, yeah. That was. I knew it was quite a bit for 19 minutes, but
triple 20 in a regular.
Mm-hmm. But you know, like you said though, Phil, you know, this is just, you know, we're happy with both sides that he gets to do what he wants to do, which is not coach a young rebuilding team, which is not his strong point. He wouldn't have been good at that here. Right. He's just not very good at developing talent. He's good at coaching
and making the most of what he has.
Yeah, he's a great coach, just not a great development coach. So, you know, we definitely got the better end of the deal for what we're trying to do. You know, not necessarily for wins and losses, but again, for what we're trying to accomplish with that program, we made the right move for us. So, but on the flip side of that, the Hawks held their own against the best team in the league, Toronto, but fell just a bit short. What did you think about the overall team effort in this game, Phil?
Man, that was one of the best Hawks efforts I've seen in years, and I've seen some very good Hawks teams. That was a great game. They deserved to win that game. The difference in that game was the late game steal by Kawhi Leonard, which shows why we're doing what we're doing right now, and that's to get a star. He was the late game difference. But man, you almost felt bad for those guys at how they battled. What night was it? Tuesday night.
Yeah, Daric, do you think this was that they held their own against this team?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game throughout, and you can just tell. I mean, after the game, even Vince Carter was hanging his head low, walking back to the locker room, and just disappointment because they really felt that they did everything they needed to come out on top in that game. So, I mean, it was a great team effort. I mean, everybody was holding their own. The turnovers were bad, but, I mean, besides that, they still stuck with it all the way to the end and even had a chance to what were we down to? I think they tie it with that last Trae Young shot, and he just couldn't get it to go against one of the best defenders, I mean, ever.
Yeah, I didn't get a chance. This is the game I didn't get a chance to check out, so I had to ask Phil about it. You know, I was curious how the effort was. When he was first talking about it, I thought he was talking poor effort, and then he's like, no, the exact opposite, man. It was just one of the better ones we've seen. You know, I have a couple side notes about this one though. One side note is, Daric, do you think Kawhi Leonard has a chance of staying in Toronto?
I think he likes it there. I mean, I think there is more of a chance now than I thought there was coming into the season when he first went there. I mean, he gets to lead that team and be in a situation where it's his team. And then, I mean, it's his own thing, and that seems like something that Kawhi likes. And I mean, they're playing very well together. So I think that he's also definitely going to look at that option a little harder now after playing with them.
Phil, you think Kawhi has a chance to stay in?
Yeah, I think if they go real deep into the playoffs, Eastern Conference Finals, perhaps the finals, I definitely think he'll have a chance to do that.
Yeah, for me, I think it's going to be all about the playoffs. If they're one and done in the playoffs, I say no shot that he comes back to Toronto. But if they make a run and head towards the finals, and he feels like this is a team that he could win a championship with, I think they got a great shot. They've definitely got the money. The ownership really likes him. That's one reason why they were willing to take the risk of trading for him. So, yeah, it's they definitely got a shot at keeping him, but I do think it's going to come out to the playoffs. So, but what do you guys think about Vince Carter getting these send-offs at some of these teams he's played for, Phil?
Yeah, it's been really cool to see. I'm not used to seeing a popular player on the Hawks. It's really kind of interesting. But did y'all see his comments? He, coming into the season, he's like, "Yeah, this is my last." Now he's kind of backing off of that a little bit, which is just insane to me. How long did this man play?
Yeah, I kind of think that he's really enjoying this player coach role that he's in. He's obviously not an official player coach, but as the three of us that watch these Hawks games, I feel like he's a member of the coaching staff as well of a player. He's mentoring these young kids, putting them in the right positions they need to be in. So, but as far as him getting celebrated, it's still awesome, especially in Toronto. It was great to see in Toronto. I mean, he bled for them. I mean, that was, before Toronto really had anything, he was that guy, and then McGrady came after him, so, he was that first real big guy that they could cheer for when it came to NBA team. But do you think it's pretty cool that he's being celebrated, Daric?
Yeah, I think it's great, especially, I mean, we saw what the Raptors and then the Nets did, but I mean, every single game, every away game, the opposing team's fans, I mean, cheer for him every single time he steps on the court, and there's really no negative energy ever whatsoever. So, I mean, it's just good to see for him because of what he's done for the NBA, and I mean, he's still going. He's still averaging about 16 minutes, I would say.
Yeah, he's even in the teams that he didn't play a lot of years for yesterday in Brooklyn, they gave him a great standing ovation in Brooklyn for, a good 30-second ovation or so. But you mentioned, the opposing team's fans, the opposing team players show him that same kind of love too. You can tell that he's just a well-liked individual in the NBA. He's one of them guys where nobody has a bad thing to say about him. And that says a lot about your character in the NBA, because there aren't many guys that, that are out there where everybody says, "Oh man, he's such a good dude," and I think him taking these $1 million, $2 million contracts, just to go and be with the young players and mentor them, has also made him well liked within the NBA community. So
he's just well respected. I mean, like you said, how he's sort of like a player coach. I mean, it's hard to listen to another guy on your team tell you what to do, but everybody is willing to go to him and hear his input and what he has to say to help them become better in certain situations. So I mean, he's been great. He's been helping all the young guys. So,
definitely my favorite free agent pickup of the year. Not only as a fan standpoint, obviously, I'm a huge fan of his, but just for the fact that, again, he does so much more than be on the court for 16 minutes. We're really just getting a bonus having him be on the court for 16 minutes. Again, what he does sitting on the bench is just as important, or it makes him essentially a 30-minute player for us. So I would love to have him back next year. If he doesn't sign a contract and doesn't want to play anymore, get him on the bench. So
I mean, he's still producing at a pretty well level for, I mean, with the ages he is, I mean, he's still knocking down shots. I mean, he's still dunking and stuff. So, I mean,
what would you say? Would you say he's a 9? He'd be a 9 for us, 8 or a 9. I don't think he's a 6-7, but probably about 8 or 9 guy. So if you look at other production from the 9th guy off the, or the 3rd guy off the bench, 4th guy off the bench, his numbers are there. It's not like he's coming out averaging 19 minutes and then 2 points. He's had a game or two like that, but they're few and far between. So
he was having a rough night yesterday. He kept getting hit in the face. He was pissed off too. He just kept getting hit in the face.
And that's it. He still shows the competitive spirit too. It's not like he's phoning it in just to have one more year in the league. He don't want to suck. So, and
it's just because he just wants to compete. He doesn't care about winning that championship. I mean, he could have easily won a championship. I mean, I'll bet the Warriors would have loved to sign him to a little vet minimum and get him a ring, but he just loves that competition.
Well, it's not like that's what surprised me when the Hawks got him, is why it shocked me, because there were so many teams interested in him and he chose to come to the Hawks. And that's what I was like, I remember telling Phil, I'm like, someone chose to come to the Hawks. I mean, you don't know how important that is, whether it's a aging veteran or not. He wanted to come here, And
I do wish it was about 10 years ago that he chose to come here, though.
But put a team together like we are, consistently improve, get another couple draft picks, and we might be that destination spot where the next superstar comes in.
A lot of him wanting to come here also was to do work with Turner and NBA TV. So that definitely helps us with some of the vets.
Yeah, he's definitely got a future, and whatever he chooses to do, whether it is the TV side of things or whether it is the coaching side of things, the fact that he's doing this leads me to believe that I think he's going to want to do the coaching side of things, because I just don't think he'd still be around if he was interested in TV, because we all know he would be front and center. He's a good looking dude. He's got a face for TV. He's got a good commentator, good talker, so he could have easily had a TNT deal a long time ago. So
that's the most surprising part, because I mean, he can easily find a job ASAP as soon as he retires. That is just a surprising part that he's still going on.
All right, let's get into some more NBA stuff. What's your biggest storyline of the first half of the NBA season, Phil?
The scoring, and I love it. I know a lot of people hate it. Like, where's the defense? I love the scoring. I love the up and down. I love the threes. I love all that. Give me more. Hey, score 150 a night if you want to. It's exciting. It's entertaining. It's fun to watch.
Offense sells tickets. Defense wins games. I mean, everybody wants to see scoring. So, Phil, what's your biggest storyline?
You mean Daric?
Yeah, Phil. Hey, Phil, why don't you tell us that story again where the offense, Hey, Daric, what's your biggest storyline?
I'm going to have to go ahead and just go with the James Harden, 11-game stretch, 11-game stretch. I mean, that's one of the best offensive performances we've seen in a very long time. And, I mean, it was just great and fun to watch every single time. And, I mean, run that he made the team go on. I mean, he just literally carries that team right at this point. And it was just, I think that was probably the most important thing that's happened, impressive thing that's happened this first half of the season.
Say that last week on this show, I said James Harden was the MVP. That's all I'm going to say. So, but, again, that was an unreal stretch. It's never been done. I mean, we sit here, we talk about Jordan, we talk about, Kobe, we talk about LeBron. He did something that those three had never done in a stretch of 11 to 12 games. It was absolutely unreal. But my biggest storyline in the first half is going backwards, the Milwaukee Bucks. What they have done is shocking to me. I mean, again, I knew they would be a playoff caliber team. I did not think that they would be as good as they are, and I did not think that they would be a legitimate shot at winning the championship this year. Bud is running away with Coach of the Year. It's not even close at the halfway mark. And he really would just have to absolutely fall on their face on the second half to not get that award. So that's probably my biggest storyline. He's also what he's done to develop Giannis's game that much more too. It's just a great story. The city of Milwaukee has been hurting for a good team for a while, so they have some building blocks there.
Dougie brought up in the chat. He said the Jimmy Butler thing. I think that is definitely up there.
And it's going
that's a good one.
Hey, the problem might be Jimmy Butler at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I kind of wish Dougie was around me when we were doing this, because I would have loved to talk about that. So you know what? What do you guys think of that? Because that was something I wanted to add to this week's show, and I completely forgot. So we'll throw that in right now because Dougie wanted to talk about it. Phil, what do you think about this?
It's time we start looking at Jimmy Butler. You ran yourself out of Chicago by crapping on the young players. You ran yourself out of Minnesota by crapping on the young players. And now you're feuding with the coach over the system. Just play the game. Like, you're supposed to be a team player. Do what you need to do.
Daric, what do you think about Jimmy Butler, man?
Yeah, I would agree with some of that. I think he is at fault to some extent, but I do think that the media is overblowing some of this stuff that's going on in Philadelphia. So, I mean, I think he's doing something, but I just don't think it's actually as big as they're making it seem.
But my thing is how can it be the media, Daric, when there's video out there that shows him doing this stuff? I mean, it's not like, the rant in Minnesota was caught on video and started that whole deal. We know that he had problems in Chicago. My thing is, what is he looking for? If he wanted to be a team leader, he had the perfect spot in Minnesota. He could have been the superstar there if he wanted to be. I don't know, man. I don't know what his problem is. Maybe he's just a bad teammate. Some guys you can't change them. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it's hard to take advice from another teammate, and in the way that it seems Jimmy Butler is doing it, I could see why a lot of guys do not like that happening and are pushing against it. So.
That is an absolute nightmare in Philadelphia. They gave up 2 good players for him, and they're not done rebuilding all the way yet. They're contending now, which is different from obviously tanking and losing. But this is a great way to find yourself right back at the beginning again. It only takes one bad teammate to ruin everything you built up, trying to get to this point. So I think they need to get rid of him ASAP. You think that, Phil? You need to get rid of him ASAP?
It ain't gonna happen.
Because they gave up too much
exactly.
So they could win games. So they have to find a way to figure it out. And it could end up being a coaching change. I think I don't know if they all like the coach that's there right now. What's his name? Brown.
Excuse me. Brett Brown. But
yeah, Brett Brown.
Joel talked about it too. He's like, oh, they're making me shoot too many threes. I don't like it.
Yeah. So, for me, it was just, Daric put it good where they can't get rid of him because of who they gave up. You gave up Dario Saric, who was a really good young player, to acquire him. And who would have thought that, Minnesota may end up winning this deal? Because I definitely did in the beginning. I thought him getting out of Minnesota, getting in to go to a major market where he could, kind of let his ego run the show and be a star. Now, some of those bigger market, when you have an ego and you're a superstar player like that, it turns you into a better player. But yeah, he's definitely destroying that team right now. But shout out to Dougie for giving us that idea. So that was something I want to talk about today. But let's get into some buy or sell. We got some good buy or sell questions today. So after seeing what Clemson did to Bama in the national championship, by the way, I want to shout out to Phil for this awesome question. Buy or sell fans owing an apology to Notre Dame, Daric?
Oh, I'm selling that. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, Bama would have did that to Notre Dame. Clemson, they did it to Notre Dame. Who else? Who was third? Oklahoma would have did it to them. Or, well, Oklahoma's 4, but Oklahoma would have did it to them. Yeah. Ohio State would have did it to them. Georgia would have did that to them. They're not at the same talent level, and they weren't ready to play a team like that.
Bill, you asked the question, so why don't you answer it? Buy or sell?
absolutely buying it, especially Georgia fans. Y'all owe him a huge apology. Georgia fans talked all that crap about Notre Dame, and then everything went wrong. Georgia didn't take care of their business, and then on top of that, Clemson beat Alabama worse than they beat Notre Dame.
I'm in the YouTube chat seeing if anybody was buying or selling Notre Dame. That was such a good question. But sorry, Phil, man, I'm going against you here. I'm selling that. Notre Dame should have never been in there. Man, UCF could have beat Notre Dame. What are you talking about?
I would not be surprised if they did.
Yeah. I wanted to see Notre Dame out and UCF play Notre Dame, and just to see who really was better, the undefeateds that didn't get in. So, but we were robbed of that opportunity. So, yeah, Phil, great question, but nah, man, I'm selling that all the way. Notre Dame shouldn't have been in there. They need to get into a conference and have a conference game. So,
yeah, I mean, I just think Georgia fans.
Oh yeah, if you were looking from that standpoint, I mean, they should have kept their mouth shut. I mean, they had no room to talk because then they didn't handle business their own.
Our own HQ troll there, Ryan Miller in chat, says UCF could have beat Georgia.
And that's coming from a Tech fan. You see how they're going.
Shout out to Ryan. He's such a good thinker. But
on the comeback, we're gonna get Jalen Hurts. We're gonna beat UGA next year.
Yeah.
Sarah said that Notre Dame is not at the same level as others right now. And then Doug says Notre Dame needs to be in a conference as well. And that's it. You can't claim to be the best if you ain't, if you're not in a conference winning conference championships, which are I think next year conference championships are going to mean more than just being undefeated. The only reason Notre Dame got in is because their fans spend money, and the NCAA knew that was going to be, a packed house, but it didn't get the ratings that I think they hoped for. So I think next year is going to be changed. It'll be a conference winner only.
Is there even anyone that's not a Notre Dame fan that doesn't think that they need to join a conference?
Yeah, they must. I don't think you shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't be able to be in the playoff if you don't.
To be honest, I mean, yeah.
Or you have to say if you're not in a conference, I think that they should have to have at least 5 games against top 20 or top 25 or less ranked teams, which would pretty much equal playing in some of these bigger conferences. To recreate that. So yeah, if you're not going to be in a conference. I think they had 3 this year where they played teams within the top 25, 3 or 4. So, but granted, they won them all. So yeah, I'm all for you got to be in a conference. But with another national title victory, buy or sell Dabo Swinney being considered as one of the greats, Daric?
Yeah, I'm going to buy. I mean, you just see the culture that he has at Clemson, and I mean, all the players love him, and he's winning. I mean, he's won 2 national championships against someone who's looked at as one of the best coaches ever. So, I mean, he's definitely has to be in the conversation, especially when it's all said and done, because he's still not even close to being done yet.
Buy or sell, Phil?
Absolutely. Dabo Swinney is one of the greatest to ever done it, and he still has a long way to go ahead of him.
Yeah, I'm 100% buying.
Matching Metro Atlanta's greatest 3 years.
Yeah. Dabo recruits Georgia better than Georgia recruits Georgia. Yeah, I'm definitely buying this 1,000%. Again, he's 2 for 2 here, and this against someone that I would argue is the best ever. When it's between him and it's between Bear Bryant, 2 Alabama legends. But he's held his own. And like Daric said, how many more is to come? They're instantly, I think they'll be preseason ranked #1 over Bama next year with how good Trevor Lawrence was. So, yeah, it's and everybody in chat seems to be buying this as well. So I think we did well buying on this one. But let's get into our boy Zion. Man, that 360 dunk. We all saw it. We all oohed. We all awed. If you didn't see it, YouTube it. It was pretty sick. A guy of his body build to get that much hop, that much air, do a 360, dunk it, and really only got about half court of speed on it. Buy or sell Zion's dunk being the best college dunk ever, Phil?
Best college dunk ever? Man, I'd have to go back in the tape and see some of those glass shattering dunk. But that's the best college dunk I've ever seen.
Yeah, what do you think, Daric? You buying or selling the best college dunk ever?
I'm gonna have to sell just because I would have to, like Phil said, I'd have to go back and look at some of those stuff. But I mean, it was very impressive. I mean, he made it look easy. But another person actually did a 360 like a day after. Some kid from Missouri State did a 360 on a fast break, which it was pretty impressive too.
But did he have was he the stature, size, and not like Zion?
Oh no,
Zion is not like built to do 360
yeah,
dunks.
no, it's not the same. It's not the same.
Something random about Zion. His voice is nothing what you would expect. I thought he would sound like a monster.
Just based on that's kind of off subject, but the other person that's exactly like that, if you ever see him on TV and ever see him do an interview, is Ender Inciarte of the Braves. If you ever see him, he's stuck, but he gets there and he's like, "Hi, I'm Ender Inciarte," and I'm more like, "What?" It just caught me off guard, but I'm selling as well. I've been doing this podcast with you guys for way too long now, because the reason I'm selling is, man, I got to see Shaq at LSU rip down baskets and then shatter glass. And I mean, he's the best dunker I've ever seen in college. So I'm selling it, but man, it was an awesome dunk. Again, if you didn't see it, what we'll do is after the show, we'll link it on the ATL Sports HQ Twitter, so you can peep it if we can find. I'm pretty sure it's all over YouTube, but we'll link it somewhere on the ATL Sports HQ page so you can check it out. So go in there and comment on that and let us know what you guys think about that dunk. But let's finish it off. I gotta find this question real quick. It wasn't in my notes. We kind of added it at the last minute. It is going to be, let me see. Buy or sell the Cardinals trading Josh Rosen and drafting Kyler Murray #1, Daric?
Oh yeah, I'm going to have to sell that, even though I do think Kyler Murray will be pretty. I think he'll do well in the NFL. He is pretty small, but I don't see them just giving up on Rosen already. And that would probably be one of the most craziest things we've ever seen if that ended up happening.
Phil, you buying or selling?
Put on layaway. How about this? You draft them, but keep them and let them battle it out for a year or two. Hey, you're the Arizona Cardinals. I don't think you're contending in the next 1 or 2 years. Why not let them battle it out and then trade the one you don't want?
I would have sold this all the way until Cliff Kingsbury got that head coaching job. And that's because he has ranted and raved about how much he loves Kyler Murray and sees the athleticism in him. This has Scott Boras worried, because he had got all that money from the MLB for him to go play for the Athletics. And now he's suddenly coming to the conclusion that Kyler Murray is skyrocketing up the NFL draft board to where he has a chance now, especially with Herbert not coming into the draft for Oregon, to where Kyler could be a top 5 pick. I can only imagine what Arizona could get for Josh Rosen, with so many quarterback needy teams and there not being a good free agent quarterbacks coming out. I think it's very possible. So I would think that it's probably going to cost you at least 2 first-rounders, a second-rounder, and a 5th or 6th to be able to get Rosen from the Cardinals. But, it's very, very, very possible that this could happen. Again, I would have never believed this, but until they gave, Kingsbury that job, because, again, I know how much he really likes Kyler. So, that is definitely going to be something to watch. be joining you guys actually on NFL draft night. We're going to do an NFL draft special live podcast where we'll give our insights like it matters, what we think about the NFL draft, but we're going to give it to you anyways. And we'll have some guests with us to help us out with some of them players that we're not really that aware of. And it's going to be a fun little show. We're also going to do that for the NBA draft this year as well. So be looking forward to that. But we're going to go ahead and call it at that. Phil, who you shouting out?
Definitely shout out everybody listening, everybody supporting, and definitely make sure you guys follow Wreck Havoc ATL. That is our new Georgia Tech specific page. We're starting up. Be on the lookout. We're also going to be starting a UGA page for you UGA people. I think that's the best route for us to go with that. And make sure you're following all. I'm gonna shout out all our Twitters. So we got the main ATL Sports HQ. We got the ATL Hawks _talk. We got the SSS ATL UTD for our Atlanta United. We got Chop Up, Chop Down. We have ATL Sport College and Birds in the Bend. So definitely make sure you are missing out if you're not following every single one of those pages, because all our coverage for each team is on each of those pages. And make sure you're following our Instagram at ATL Sports HQ. And if you're not subscribing to our YouTube and our iTunes yet, I don't know what you're doing, especially if you're watching the show right now, because you need to do
give us a rating too. Ratings are great. Rate us on iTunes.
Like our stuff on YouTube. Help us out. Mm-hmm. We're trying to help you guys out by bringing you the best coverage from the fans, for the fans in the city of Atlanta. We want to be your go-to source for all things Atlanta sports.
Shout out to Daric.
Everybody tuned in again. I mean, we love the participation in the chat. It helps us, and it gives y'all a chance to put in your input. So we definitely appreciate that, and I hope you guys continue to watch and support us on everything that we do. Make sure to go out and check out the website too.
Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your mailman, tell your mailman's wife. I don't care. Just tell everybody. Come watch us. With the participation is what we really like in the chat. It's something that it lets us know that we're doing a good job for you. So and when with the two of these guys, I really appreciate everybody that does tune in. I know. There's a bunch of guys, on my side of things that watch on my Facebook that don't really chat, but yeah, definitely come in to chat with us on YouTube and check us out and support us and everything. Shout out to everybody on the writing crew. We still need to do a better job, but we're getting there, slowly but surely. We will become the #1 destination site for sports, whether we got to make you come along for the ride or not. We are going to get there. We got some big things planned. I'm really excited for this Georgia Tech page. We have two of the biggest Georgia Tech fans that I know taking control of that page. And so we can definitely look. What's that?
That shout out Game Time Radio, of course.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing I was getting there. You just took all my glory away. My two co-hosts for Game Time Radio this week are ditching me. So I am going to handle the duties of Game Time Radio this week. I got a couple of surprise guests on tap for the show this week. And so I'm really excited to be with them. One we've seen before, one we haven't. So it's going to be some big things. And then in 2 weeks, Game Time Radio will be Phil and I will be handling the duties, and we'll also have our good friend Jansen Harris with us to make things happen. We're going to hold down the fort for E, and make sure things go well. I'm excited for this weekend, though. I'm gonna miss you for sure, Phil. You're my right hand man, so it's gonna be hard without you. But we'll
be watching. Giannis put us to sleep again.
Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you all next week.